Welcome to the slide-ready output and chart section of this Beyond Formulas Excel modeling training series. In this lesson, we're going to look at everything you need to know to create the charts you want and to save your favorite charts with templates. The goals of this lesson are to learn how to create and format a basic chart, including adjusting the axes to enhance your message, to learn to use a dynamic named range in your charts so that they grow with your data, to learn to save and apply chart templates, and to learn how to use linked images to create live copies of underlying regions of your workbook as an image. You'll need the CarryMac Case 8.2 Output Ready Charting Fundamentals Starter file. By the end of this video, you would have created a set of beautifully formatted charts for your presentation or deliverable. You would have saved the formatting as a template for easy reuse, and you would have pasted a chart as a linked image to create a living copy of a chart you've already created. Let's go learn about and practice this in Excel now. Open the CarryMac Case 8.2 Output Ready Charting Fundamentals Starter file and go to the Graph Data Output tab. Following on the previous lesson, I've already linked and formatted all of the most important data for the main analyses I'd like to perform in this model. What I'd now like to do is visualize some of this data using charts. For our first hands-on example, go down to the shipping cost per order by manufacturing footprint scenario. And let's create a line chart. The simplest way to create almost any chart is to format your data in a basic table with clear row names down the column on the left-hand side and clear header names along the row at the top. By selecting the data that you'd like to chart, you can go to the Insert ribbon above and then quickly select from a variety of instant chart types. Here, I'd like to create a line chart, so I click on the Line Chart option and then can select one of a variety of line chart formats. Just to keep it simple, let's click on the first one, although depending on your data, you may want to experiment with a variety of options. Because I formatted my underlying data correctly, you can see that Excel immediately creates a semi-reasonable chart. But we can do a lot better. Let's start by giving our chart a title. To access the full suite of chart formatting options, you can click on the Chart Tools Layout ribbon that appears once you've clicked on a chart that you've created within Excel. This provides a host of options available to format your chart and make everything a little clearer. Let's start by adding a chart title. You can find this in the ribbon under Chart Title. And let's select the option to create the title above the chart. You can see that Excel has created this chart title placeholder. I can double click and select all the text to replace it with something else. Let's call this Shipping Cost per Order by Location. Excellent, our chart has already become a whole lot clearer. But before you can ever pass off a chart to any kind of stakeholders, you need to at very least label both axes so it's clear to anyone exactly what they represent. So let's go ahead and do that now. We can use the Axis Title option, and then let's go and choose the primary horizontal axis and add a title below the axis. Let's label this Period in brackets Quarters. For the vertical axis title, which we can find in the same location, we can choose from a variety of display options. Let's choose the rotated title to begin. And I want to call this $per order shipping cost. Depending on your preferences, you may want to remove something like grid lines, which we can easily do in the grid lines option above. Let's go select horizontal grid lines and change the option to none. From the same set of options, I can easily manipulate where the legend appears. Let's move the legend to below. And I can add more sophisticated visual elements, such as adding lines, which can, for example, show the difference between the topmost and the bottommost line in a given chart. Let's assume that for some reason we need to add an additional column onto the side of the data we've already charted. If we simply want to extend the scope of the chart area to include this range, we can click on one of the corners of the chart range box and drag it over to the side. Instantly, the chart is updated to include the new data column. But this has created a problem. The shipping cost per parcel is measured in tens of dollars, whereas orders are measured in hundreds of thousands. Showing both of these items on the same set of axes inevitably winds up in the first 5 columns appearing infinitesimally small. We can fix this by assigning the orders data series to a different axis. To do this, we can click on the orders data series, which selects it, right-click on it, and then click on Format Data Series, where the first option presented to us is to switch from primary to secondary axis. Doing so immediately rectifies the visual disparity, since we can now see the orders are represented by the scale on the right-hand side measured in millions, while the shipping cost per order is represented on the left-hand side in tens of dollars. Let's make the charts a little bigger so we can see a little more of what we're trying to do. Another issue with this chart is that the leftmost vertical axis begins at 0, even though all of our data only meaningfully begins above 12. We can easily adjust this by clicking on the leftmost axis, which selects it, right-clicking, and then going to Format Axis. This gives us a range of options that we can update to play with how the axis is displayed and formatted. Let's change the minimum from auto to fixed and change the value from 0 to 10. If we click OK, we can see that the change takes immediate effect, with the axis beginning at 10 and heading up to 18, which now makes visualizing the difference between the different line charts much clearer. Since the shipping cost per order in this chart is represented as a set of line graphs, it may make more sense to represent the orders line as something other than a line chart so that it's a little clearer. We can do this easily. Let's click on the data series, right-click on it, and then click on Change Series Chart Type. Now we can switch the visualization format from the line chart as we have presently to anything else. Let's move it to a simple column chart. Hit OK to complete the sequence. This already looks a lot clearer, but the orders column charts are clearly the second-class citizen in this chart. It's easy enough to play with the formatting of the individual units in order to change things like colors and shapes. Simply click on the data series, right-click, click on Format Data Series, and then play with a host of different formatting options. Here I'd like to go to the Fill menu and change from Automatic to Solid Fill, where I can select a nice light orange color as the fill background. Hitting OK now adds this nice, subtle, light orange background, which gives me a clear sense of how the order volume is changing over time, and therefore how the average shipping cost per quarter is evolving over time for each one of the manufacturing location scenarios. This shows some of the general power of Excel's chart formatting options. Simply clicking on something and then right-clicking on it often gives you useful menus that let you make easy adjustments to the chart in just 1 or 2 clicks. Having demonstrated the most simple and useful techniques in charting, I'd now like to go on to something a little more advanced. One of the problems often encountered when trying to create charts is that the size of the data can change. In previous portions of this training, we looked at how to create dynamic named ranges which grow as the data grows. Let's say, for example, that we'd like to give the orders column in this table a name, and I've already previously done so with the label CHT Orders. If we wanted to turn this name range into a dynamic name range, we can go to the Formulas ribbon, go to Name Manager, and then go down and find the CHT Orders name. I can edit it, and then update the Refers To box to include the dynamic name range formula. The formula starts with the offset function. Open brackets, and select the header cell of the orders column. Next, we'd like to offset 1 row down and 0 rows across, and we'd like to return the range consisting of the number of items in the table below. To estimate this, we can use the count A function, which counts the non-blank range, and then we can click and drag down to the entire column below. Let's go as far as row 42 just to demonstrate what happens. Let's close brackets to complete the count A formula and complete the offset formula by hitting comma and 1, which will return a range of a single column width. Closing brackets and hitting OK completes the name range formula. And if we click into the Refers To box and move the window aside, we can see that the running ants, as I like to call them, are correctly running around the values in the orders column. Click Close to complete. Likewise, we can go to the period column in the chart data and we can give it the label CHT periods. And convert that again into a dynamic name range, we can hit the Name Manager function in the Formulas ribbon. Let's go find the CHT periods name range and hit Edit. And then apply the similar offset approach. Equals, offset, select the header cell, go 1 down and 0 across, select the number of values using the count A formula to count the number of non-blank cells in the selected range, close brackets, and return a range with 1 column of width. Close brackets and hit OK to complete, and test out our formula by clicking into the Refers To field. Once again, we see the ants running around the correct values. If I was to go and add a 21st row and a corresponding value of orders, I would love to be able to tell my chart to dynamically realize that the data has changed and grow accordingly. And so we get to the first significant trick that I can teach you about charts. Normally, they don't let you add dynamic name ranges, but there is in fact a way to trick Excel into accepting it. To achieve this, click on the orders range, right-click, and click on Select Data. You're now faced with Excel's Select Data Source dialog. There are two things we're interested in here. The first one is that we'd like to go down to the Order Series and hit Edit. This gives us the series name and the series values, and we'd like to replace the series values with a dynamic named range that we just created. In other uses of the formula, you would simply type equals CHT orders, but this doesn't work for charts. Instead, you need to erase only the cell references on the right hand side and leave the worksheet reference on the left hand side followed by exclamation mark, and finish it with CHT orders. And that's it. That's the trick. Hitting OK tells Excel to always consider the dynamic named range instead of the regular reference in how it calculates this chart. I can do the same thing with the horizontal category axis. Let's hit Edit, select everything in the chart after the exclamation mark, and then type CHT periods, and hit OK. Hitting OK updates the data selection. And there you have it. Excel has dynamically added a 21st line item and included the value 400,000 in the chart. If I was to delete the 21 and the 400, you would notice that the chart simply makes those values disappear. This trick is incredibly useful for dynamic dashboards that you may want to create as an output to some of your analyses, and is definitely one of the most useful tricks I've learned in Excel in a while. So now that we've done all of this very hard work to create a beautiful chart we love, don't you wish you could simply save this format to reuse again and again in future charts? The good news is that you can. It's as simple as selecting the chart, selecting the design ribbon within Chart Tools above, and then select Save as Template. The default location in which you have to save the templates to be useful is the Microsoft/templates/charts folder. And now all that's required is for you to give your chart a name. Let's call this My Test. Saving the template file completes the step. So let's say we wanted to do this from scratch. We'll delete our chart, select all of the data as we had before, and then select Insert and create a line chart. And now rather than do all the manual piecework we did previously, we can simply select the chart, go back to Design ribbon, and select Change Chart Type. We can now go to Templates, which is the first option in the menu on the top left hand side, and we can select the My Test template, which you can see by hovering the mouse over the second item. Hit OK to apply the chart template. And there you have it, all of the formatting we previously discussed magically applied to your new chart. Of course, it didn't go as far as remembering your custom axis title or chart title, but that's the kind of thing you should probably do on a per chart basis. I urge you to go and play around with a multitude of different chart options available in the Insert ribbon. Everything from a variety of column and cone charts, line charts, pie charts, bar charts including both stacked bar charts and clustered bar charts, variations of area curves, point scatter plots as we demonstrated earlier in the XY scatter plot tutorial, and even a host of other charts including three-dimensional, bubble, and radar charts. For my final tip in this lesson, applicable to the creation of dashboards and output tabs, I would like to simply copy a chart that I've created previously in this lesson and paste it into the sheet, but I don't want to have to recreate the underlying formatting. Instead, I can use a pasted linked image. So let's go find the appropriate chart. If I scroll over to the side and go to the Pivot Sales Data tab, I can see the penetration versus household density correlation chart that I created previously. Rather than creating a duplicate copy of this chart, I would like to simply create an image that represents this chart and put it on the Output tab. Excel makes this really simple. If I just did a basic copy and paste, in other words, if I just selected the chart, hit copy, and then went back to my graph data page and pasted it on, it would paste the actual chart, complete with all the various formatting. If I wanted to go make changes to one of the charts, I would then need to go make those same changes to the second chart. Instead, I would like an exact image of the original chart so that I only need to make those changes once. My other option is that I can use the paste special command and paste it as a picture. The downside of this is that Excel has created an actual picture replica. So if I go over to the chart and I make some kind of changes, let's say for example I go to the layout and add some horizontal grid lines, if I go back to my graph data page, you can see that it is not updated. There is another option that Excel provides that is little known, and this is to paste a linked image. If I go back to my pivot sales data page and instead I move my cursor to the cell behind the chart, I hold Shift and I use my arrow keys to select all of the cells currently behind the chart, and then I hit Control C to copy that selection. If I go back to the graph data page and move my mouse to an appropriate place and then hit Paste Special in the Home ribbon, I now get a number of other options. I can paste values, yada yada, but the interesting one for this purpose is the linked image option at the bottom right hand side. If I click on this option, I now get what looks very similar to the image that I pasted previously. However, this is an actual live reproduction of the cells in the other tab. I can show this with text just as easily. If I go over to the Pivot Sales tab and I select only the top few values of the table, I can copy them, go back to my output page, and once again hit Paste Special and hit Linked Image on the bottom right hand side. And once again I get this real image. The nice thing about this image is that it accurately reflects any changes made to the underlying data. And if I double click on the linked image, it actually takes me directly to the range that I previously selected. Going back to the graph data, this works just as well if I double click on the linked image of the chart. And if I now make a change, such as remove the grid lines, and then go back to my graph output, you can see that the chart is updated to reflect the changes. This is an incredibly handy technique for building dashboards, since you can safely lock down any of the outputs on a graph data tab, lock all the pages underneath so that no one can access them, and still be able to visualize and show the results of your analyses to any key stakeholders. Let's delete this random blob of text that we pasted over here as a linked image and instead do something slightly more useful. Let's head over to the Pivot Sales Monthly tab and instead paste a linked image of the quarterly seasonal index. Select the range, hit Control C, and then let's go back to our graph data and select the Paste Special and then Linked Picture. And there you have it. You can also easily resize this, retaining full picture integrity, and you can move and stack them around as needed, playing with things like alignment, grouping, and bringing them forward and backwards to create the right stacking order in your display. And thus concludes the Charting Basics and Advanced Charting Tricks section of this Excel modeling training series. I hope you can put some of these visualization techniques to good use in presenting the outputs of your very impressive models to your key stakeholders. And I hope that the graph data output page saves you numerous awkward moments and working all night.